Okay. Yeah. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The mayor has called the meeting to order. Mayor Davey?
Here.
Councilmember Kaplan?
Here.
Councilmember Laredo?
Here.
Vice Mayor London?
Here.
Councilmember McCormick?
Here.
Councilmember Moss?
Here.
Councilmember Segurola? Mr. Mayor, we do have a quorum.
Councilmember Segurola, you are still muted. Here. Okay. All right.
May we please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Mayor, the first item is public comments.
That's right. I want to thank you all for coming here. Mike, if you could read the instructions. I have a few people signed up to speak. And Commissioner Regalado, I want to thank you very much for coming. I see you there. I know you were trying to be in person, but I appreciate you being here. What we're going to do is we're going to have public comments, then we'll have discussion, and we'll have comments from Commissioner Regalado as well. Mike, if you could read the instructions to the folks at home. Oh, you will be. I apologize. The clerk will be doing that. Okay.
So Mike, really quick,
yes.
I'm still at the BCC, so obviously that's why I'm joining you all through Zoom. So you want me to speak at the end after the public comments?
If that would be, yeah, if that's possible, we'd appreciate it, just so you can hear what people have to say, and maybe you can answer some of the questions that are going to come up tonight. Thank you.
That's fine. Happy to do it that way.
Thank you.
Are you going to do live public comments?
I'll do live first, but if you could just explain to people what they need to do if they want to speak.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. For those of you watching us on channel 77 on Comcast, on channel 99 on AT&T, or streaming us live via our website. If you wish to speak or have any comments to Counsel, please dial the following telephone number, 305-365-7569, and then please enter the meeting ID number of 231-627-8415. For those of you currently in the meeting or wishing to speak, please dial *9 on your telephones now or raise your hand within the Zoom app.
Again, as soon as we get through these public speakers, just give the information with the numbers maybe a little slower for those folks at home who are like me and not that quick with the numbers. Well, our comments will be in the discussion period right now. I think we'll want to wait and let the public be heard first. Fausto Gomez is our first speaker. And again, I'm going to be asking you to limit yourself to 3 minutes. We'll be a little charitable, but we're going to try and keep this moving. We've got a lot of people interested in speaking.
Can you hear me?
I hear you. Go ahead.
All right. Fausto Gomez, 765 Crandon Boulevard, Penthouse 10, Key Biscayne, Florida, 33149. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council. I want to thank you for holding this meeting to discuss options about the Rickenbacker Causeway and to listen to the citizens of Key Biscayne. As many of you have said, this causeway is the most important issue facing our community, and I'm glad that you have decided to address it. It was time. My remarks will be brief. I suggest that you adopt a two-track approach to the Rickenbacker. The first is sending an official letter to the mayor of Miami-Dade County requesting the transfer of the causeway to Key Biscayne. Your attorney sent you the appropriate legal mechanisms to begin the process. I don't know how the mayor will react or if the county is willing to transfer. But what I do know is that we have to establish our position. I also know that due to an avalanche of concern expressed in Spanish language media, tomorrow Mayor Levine Cobb at 7:15 will be on Spanish language radio, followed by County Commissioner Pepe Diaz. The second track is for this council to take an official position against the RFP. The privatization process that has been followed, while legal, has been opaque and has not been welcomed to the opinions of affected parties. If you believe otherwise, then why the cone of silence? If the Rickenbacker is going to be addressed, and it has to be, because of the Bearcut Bridge, the Powell Bridge, and the need for multimodal improvements, then the county should follow an inclusive, participatory, transparent, and balanced process. That has not been done, and we should not be a party to that. I understand that there is concern about preserving this community's relationship with Miami-Dade. But I ask you, what are the terms of that relationship? Key Biscayne was not advised of the unsolicited proposal, was only given a heads up days before it being on the agenda, and our manager had to clarify various items in the RFP. I want to personally thank Commissioner Regalado, who serves this community well. She has listened to our concerns and has promised to be your advocate. Just because you will be fulfilling your responsibilities and stand up for Key Biscayne and its residents does not mean that we will damage the relationship with Commissioner Regalado or the county. Any effective relationship is really a marriage of equals and not for Key Biscayne to be subservient as it is right now. I want to thank each and every one of you, including our manager, for your efforts. Unfortunately, Miami-Dade has been deaf to our concerns, just like they remain deaf to the city of Miami Beach and to Commissioner Heyman. As Tom Hanks said, can we get serious now? Thank you. And I'll be pleased to answer any questions you may have now or during the process.
Thank you. The next speaker, Gene Stearns.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is it, if I may at the outset, do I need to wear this to talk?
No, just state your name and the address for the record, please.
My name is Gene Stearns. My address is 250 Cape Florida Drive, Key Biscayne. I've been a resident of Key Biscayne with my family for 50 years. It was 8 years ago that I stood at this place, at this moment, 8 years ago, and listened to the county say that they were going to put a new concrete top on a 1940s foundation, but it was okay because they were going to immediately begin to replace the subsurface foundation with a new bridge over Bear Cut 8 years ago. As George Bush famously said, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. We're now in the fool me twice category. The reality is that the Bear Cut Bridge and the subsurface of the bridge has been known for years to not be able to survive a Category 2 storm. That's not me talking. That's the county's own engineers in a report issued in 2013, which was the first paragraph and the last paragraph of the report that concluded their examination of the foundations of that bridge. It is for us an emergency. It has been an emergency every summer. This project should have long been undertaken. And I want to applaud Commissioner Regalado for making more trips to Key Biscayne in her first year than her predecessor did in 8. Because the reality is we had no voices in Dade County government and a complete lack of concern. But we also need to understand our place in things. It is important to us more than most other residential communities because this is our home. We're also an $8 or $9 billion tax base that provides enormous support to our school system and our county government. But we're not the only constituency that has an interest in this causeway. Cape Florida State Park is, I believe, the second most popular state park in the entire system. Cars line up on every holiday and weekend to wait their turn to get into the park. Crandon Park used to be popular, but of course it's now gives meaning to that adage. They paved paradise and built with a parking lot, and that's what we have at Crandon Park. Not many cars, but lots of asphalt parking. The reality is that there was a secret process that began in March with a presentation to the Parks Department, which is taking control of the causeway. And what happened from that secret set of meetings, in an unsolicited proposal, were the development of design criteria for a causeway. And that design criteria emerged when an RFP was presented, which did not go back to the county commission for public comment, but was a consequence solely of a staff decision as to what would be in it. And that RFP severely limits the design decisions that would be made by any competitive bids for this project. And I don't know where the estimate came from that we saw in the Herald, but a $500 million project, you can be assured that the revenue stream from the Causeway is not sufficient to build or maintain a $500 million project. I see this 00 on the screen, but if I just may close with this, is that let's not forget all the other constituencies that have an interest. And let's just say at the outset, we need a public process, not a secret process, because the RFP is purely 100% in private design decisions, private funding decisions, and you don't know what it is until it's shown to you. Right. And that's not how you deal with these constituencies and this important problem. But the last thing I tell you is it's not just us. It's not just the village of Key Biscayne. We are, in the sense, the hall monitors.
I got to ask you to wrap up.
We're the hall monitors, but don't forget for a nanosecond that we have to speak for the parks and the people who use them. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Louisa Conway.
Louisa Conway. Oops, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Sorry. Louisa Conway, 151 Crandon Boulevard. Good evening, Council. Thank you very much for having this meeting for the residents this evening. And thank you, Commissioner Regalado, for tuning in and listening to us. I just would really like to echo a lot of what Mr. Gomez and especially what Mr. Stearns has said, because the cone of silence is a real problem. And the fact that in the RFP, they made, Key Biscayne a stakeholder was really problematic because it muzzled us. It doesn't give us an opportunity to say anything. We couldn't even go out and meet with bidders. And I think, as Mr. Stearns has pointed out, and that's the biggest problem here, it is a veiled process. And in order for Key Biscayne to take charge, we need to kill this plan. So to Commissioner Regalado, we're really counting on you. We voted for you. I know I definitely voted for you and supported you. But our village needs your help. And you are representing us, and this dais needs your help. So our residents would like to have a say. If we kill this plan, as Mr. Stearns has pointed out, and Mr. Gomez, it gives us an opportunity to bring bidders back. And please, do not muzzle us. The county had no right to muzzle the village of Key Biscayne. So I ask all of you to do your job and stand up for all of us, because we're all with you if you stand up for us. So that's all I ask for tonight. And thank you very much for holding this meeting for all the residents.
Thank you. Katie Petros, Councilmember Katie Petros.
Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, totally.
Katie Petros, 375 Redwood Lane. Hi, Mayor, council members, village attorney, manager. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak. I have listened to the speakers before me, and I understand and recognize their concern. I have a little bit of a different feeling of how I think you as a council should approach this. And I really think we shouldn't start off assuming the worst, but we should try and assume that we can get to the best. And I think that in the time that I served on council, I found that I was much more effective, and we were more effective if we tried to work together. This is a huge issue. We don't control the Rickenbacker. We never have controlled the Rickenbacker, even though it was built primarily at the very beginning to provide our village the development and the access. And I don't think the county should lose sight of that. And I think we should understand it's pretty simple what our community needs. And we want to have access to and from our homes safely. We want to have bridges that can withstand hurricanes. Gene Stearns very aptly pointed out that we all know that Bear Cut Bridge is a problem, and I suggest or would assume that the other ones will become a problem. But that means we need to work with the county, and it may not have come up in the most public or open way, but I have rarely seen something come up exactly how we'd like. And the important thing is to build some relationships here, and also among all of you. I think if you could reach a consensus of what we want, some simple facts, because this is a complicated process, it's a complicated issue, and it's incredibly important for us. But we have other issues too. We have climate change, we have beaches, we have all of these things that require collaboration. And if we start off on the wrong foot, I don't think we're ever going to get what we want. And I think it's really important that you look at the higher goal here. Obviously, if we can get safe and improved access to our homes, which was a problem prior to the pandemic, we were concerned about all the weekly events, and there was more traffic on the Rickenbacker than ever. That's gone away with COVID, but it's coming back. And so if we can find a way to improve that through this process, that's a great goal. Commissioner Regalado has been incredibly present. I've seen her face more often in the time I've been off council than I saw the former commissioner. The county brought forward a library initiative fully funded by them. Our Mast Academy deal has worked well for our community. Let's not forget that we can work together and be productive. So I urge you to think and to come to a unified voice tonight of what your priorities are, and send that to the county with a positive message, not a negative one. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is anybody else in the chambers who'd like to speak on this issue? Okay, do we have anybody signed up to speak?
Yes, we do. Our next caller, Mr. Mayor, is telephone number ending in 301. Caller, please dial *6 to unmute yourself.
And you have 3 minutes. State your name and address for the record, please. Hello?
The last 3 numbers ending in 301.
Okay, let's move on to the next person. We can come back to 301.
The next caller, Mr. Mayor, is telephone number ending in 396. Please dial *6 to unmute yourself.
Hi, did you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. State your name and address for the record, please.
This is Jennifer Stearns Buttrick. I live at 180 Cape Florida Drive. And I would just like to state that the problem that we are facing is that the design decisions have already been made. So while I understand former Councilmember Petros's desire to work cooperatively, I think that the county has put us in an incredibly difficult position because they've already made significant decisions about the design elements, which are going to have a significant impact on our lives, as well as everyone who utilizes Key Biscayne, which is a large portion of our community. And while I think the message to the county needs to be, we need to undo this RFP and do a do-over. It's time for a do-over. And let's work cooperatively in an open and public process. We've heard a lot on Key Biscayne recently about the importance of transparency. Well, this is a clear example of a government not being transparent. And we need to work cooperatively with all of the residents of our community, and I mean the greater Miami-Dade community, to come up with consensus that this RFP needs to be undone. I don't want to have an antagonistic relationship with the county, that they have put us in an incredibly difficult position. I also echo the prior speaker's comments about Commissioner Regalado. We so appreciate her visibility and her help for Key Biscayne. The library plan I am fully supportive of, and she's clearly interested in our community, and I hope that she will be our voice and the voice of all who use our beaches on the Key. And that includes the cyclists and the pedestrians. It should be made safer for everyone. But this plan designed in secret is not the answer. We need to come up, we need to start over. It's a do-over time. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller.
Next caller, Mr. Mayor, is
Looks like three.
Richard Mickelson.
Okay. Please press *6 on your phone. There you go.
You may deliver your comments, Mr. Mickelson.
Thank you very much. Richard Michelson, 1121 Crandon Boulevard, D1108 in Key Biscayne. I really mostly want to express my appreciation to the council for holding this meeting tonight and recognizing the critical importance of this issue. What I keep hearing from everybody I speak about is the recognition that the Rickenbacker is the sole ingress and egress to our homes. This is not only the only way we have to getting here, but it's the only way we have for getting off in the case of an emergency. And what we're looking at for everything I'm aware of in this plan is one that has not considered the realities of the cost of the program to the residents of Key Biscayne and all that will be entailed with the recreational component being such a huge part of the current RFP. So I want to thank the council. I want to express my personal view that I hope that the almost 100 people attending this meeting tonight give you the impression that there is a real lot of interest in Key Biscayne for you taking a strong position. Yes, I'd like to get along with the county of Miami, but I'm particularly interested that we represent Key Biscayne's best interest in ensuring that we have a plan that is reasonable, responsive, and affordable for Key Biscayne for the future. So thank you for your work.
Thank you. Next caller.
You want me to read the instructions in? A lot of people have joined the waiting room.
Yes, and I believe, 301, it looks like 301 is still there. You want to ask 301 to unmute?
Yes. You have the telephone number ending in 301. Please dial *6 to unmute yourself.
And then, one more time.
Good evening.
Oh, there you go. Go ahead. Sorry.
Good evening, Village of Key Biscayne Council and Commissioner 7.
Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Servando Parapar, and my address is 240 Cypress Drive.
Go ahead.
Key Biscayne Rickenbacker Causeway in 1945 was conceived and as access for the County population to the beaches in Crandon Park. Subsequently, it became a driveway for the residents and workers of the village of Key Biscayne. Later, an access for Miami-Dade County citizens to build back State Park. It is a major transportation corridor in Miami-Dade County. The county should give priority to the replacement of the Bear Cut Bridge and the rehabilitation of the Bill Powell Bridge, not to a linear park. I ask you, the Village of Key Biscayne Council and the Miami-Dade County Commissioner District 7 to make it happen as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, do we have any other callers?
Read the instructions one more
Please.
time. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. For those of you watching us on channel 77 on Comcast, on channel 99 on AT&T, or streaming us live via our website, if you wish to speak or have any comments for council, please dial the following telephone number. Please dial 305-365-7569, and then please enter the meeting ID of 231-627-8415. For those of you currently in the meeting or wishing to speak, please dial *9 on your telephones now, or raise your hand within the Zoom app.
Doesn't look like we've got anybody else signed up. With that, let's close public comments. And we'll move on to our discussion.
Mr. Mayor, we are checking to see if there's anyone across the street who has a public comments.
Okay.
But it might take a few minutes. I don't know if you want to.
Yep.
There's no one. Oh, there's no one.
Nobody over there? Okay. No, let's proceed. Well, we all know the purpose of tonight's meeting is to discuss the options open to us right now with respect to Bearcut Bridge and the Rickenbacker Causeway. Very simply. I'm sorry. We have speakers signed up. Okay. I'll wait.
I'm sorry. Someone did just join on the Zoom app, if that's all right.
Absolutely. Have them speak.
It's online. No, I would like to speak.
Shh. Okay.
And there is one person in the Zoom app.
I've been on the phone.
You can turn your phone off now.
So I've been on the phone and this thing does not work.
Okay.
Who are you?
Good. State your name and address, please.
Monica Sioka, 161 Crandon Boulevard, apartment 118.
Go ahead.
So I want to understand how you guys are going to protect our $24 annual pass with this whole bridge thing. That's pretty much it.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Anybody else?
And
all right, Mike, can I jump in now?
Yes, go ahead, Commissioner.
One more person.
One more person to speak. Sorry, and then we'll have the Commissioner.
The next person is telephone number ending in 222. Caller, please dial *6 to unmute yourself.
There you go. State your name and address for the record, please.
Gary Gross, 211 Island Drive. Sorry for the late pound in. I thought I had done it right the first time, but I didn't. Anyway, thank you for having the meeting. I have a couple quick comments, and I have a real strong concern here, as I'm sure a lot of people do. This entire process kind of harkens me back to a time now 30 plus years ago, when we tried our best to negotiate any say in anything with Dade County and got nothing, not even a thank you for the tax dollars we were paying. And I think that if you look back in the process of where we are today, the tennis center was built, major impact on us. We had no say-so. Ultra, we had no say-so. The Marine Stadium development, we really had no say-so, even though they made head fakes at negotiating with us. And now this process, which has far more impact on the village of Key Biscayne than anything that's ever happened before, it was done in the dark of night and sprung on us. And so the notion that we can deal with Dade County and reason with them and have them care about our concerns, I think, unfortunately, is a little naive at this point. We are a small community of 14,000 people, maybe 4,000 or 5,000 voters, but we contribute a huge amount of money to Dade counties. And at this particular point, I believe our very survival is at stake. We need to do everything we can in any way we can, not to have a seat at the table, but to stop the process that's going on right now and change the course of it. You know, we were lied to, and Gene Stern said this, we were lied to 8 years ago when they did a Band-Aid to our driveway, the bridge, and promised that we're going to build us a new bridge. Well, here we are today, no new bridge, another broken promise. So all I can say is that if I was still up there with all of you, I would be pounding the desk and demanding that we put on our war paint and stop this process in any way we possibly can. because we don't have any other choice. If anything resembling what we're looking at today goes forward, this whole village is in a lot of trouble. So, they listed the stakeholders and asked the stakeholders to give comments. I wasted my time and wrote something. It was never addressed. But of all the stakeholders, the bicyclers, the residents of Dade County, the village, the users of the state park and the county park, of all the stakeholders, there's no stakeholder involved in this process that has a more important role in this than we do. Because
Gary, I got to ask you to wrap up.
I'm wrapped up. Thank you for the
sir.
time. Let's go get them and get this thing changed.
Appreciate it. Okay. Want to come in and speak? Do we have anybody else?
No.
Okay. All right. I know Commissioner Regalato's had a long day, so I apologize for starting to talk. I'll recognize Commissioner Regalato, who is out here helping us out.
Thank you all. Thank you all. And I want to thank everyone who came out. I'm sorry I couldn't physically be here. Our BCC meeting ran really late. So first and foremost, listen, I understand the frustration. I know that the county has never been a good partner to Key Biscayne. I'm glad that some of the speakers mentioned Mast Academy. If anyone can say that they made a promise to Key Biscayne and kept it, I can. When I was your school board member, some of you, worked with me on that project, and you know how difficult it was. And against all odds, we got Mast expanded. It wasn't easy. It was a very difficult process, but we got it done. And I think that the end result, the proof is in the pudding as to my advocacy and how highly I regard your opinion as a community. So first and foremost, I also agree with some of the speakers in that this is not the best way to resolve an infrastructure problem. Unsolicited proposals are not ideal. However, we got an unsolicited proposal. In a perfect world, the county would have saved the funding and would have kept its promises in terms of the infrastructure for Bear Cut. That's not the case. I have yet to see the county produce the funding for a fix to Bear Cut. That's not my call to make. That's the mayor's call to make. That's her administration has to respond to that question. And as we go into our budget process, that's a question that we're going to ask. But the reality is that Miami-Dade government has not been a good owner of infrastructure and of properties. So let's just be honest about that. We have historically had issues with maintenance, and I have been one of the biggest critics of that. However, here's where we're at. Miami-Dade County has two processes. We have our RFP process and we have our unsolicited proposal process. Our unsolicited proposal process is by ordinance, and receiving an unsolicited proposal triggers that, and that has a timeline, and we're following that timeline. The RFP process also has different components, including a cone of silence. Your determination that you are a key stakeholder as a village does not apply the cone of silence. And actually, our legal department has been working with your attorneys to provide you with information, on exactly what it does limit. It doesn't keep you in the dark. What the RFP does, as it's currently written, is that it prohibits the proposers from lobbying you. It does not prohibit your communications with proposers. There's a legal distinction to that you should talk to your attorneys about. I'm not here to give you legal advice. I am an attorney, but I'm not your attorney. I'm your county commissioner. And I think it's important for you all to consider that, I have done everything that I can to include you in the process. The mayor looked at the RFP. We worked on it. I was adamant about that. I wanted you all to be able to look at it and to opine on it before it went out. We had a public meeting before that RFP was even drafted. That's the first time that's ever happened to my knowledge in Miami-Dade County. And as to being in the dark and not being able to speak to these issues, all these public meetings are accessible to the proposers. And if they want to have support, then they're probably looking at these public meetings. But that being said, let's go through the process and understand it a little. Now that we have this unsolicited proposal, we have a timeline in which the county had to issue an RFP. Did the county wait to issue that RFP? Yes. And to some of the speakers, I learned about it when you learned about it. I learned about it when it hit the agenda, just like you guys did. So I was the first to complain that maybe the administration had waited a little longer than it should have to give us all notice of that. That being said, the clock was ticking on the confidentiality of that unsolicited proposal. But I think that there's a misunderstanding as to what happens at the end of this RFP process. Because, like I said, there's the RFP process and then there's the unsolicited proposal. Unlike a straight up RFP process, when there is a determination made on this, it doesn't automatically mean that we're going to start building the project. In fact, what it means, and you guys received the Q&A on this, and we've talked about it before, but I'm happy to talk about it again. You know, we have an interim agreement. The county will have an interim agreement with the bidder that wins for 18 months, and we can let that lapse or we can cancel it. So if the details, because we all agree, right? I share your frustration in that when we talk about this subject, we talk about the parks and the bikes and all these different things. I want to drill down into the infrastructure, but that is all part of the interim agreement. Like you guys, I want to know what happens to the left turns. We've talked about this. These are the things that we want to know. These things are all part of the interim agreement. They're not part of the RFP. And if the county is not happy with the interim agreement, we can cancel it, or we can just let it lapse. Now, that being said, I'm so glad that Gene Stearns is here. So Gene, you will remember that when the county courthouse was done, you and I were not on the best of terms. However, the reality is that you participated in that process. And one of the things that happened is that the county set out the RFP and an unsolicited proposal came out while that RFP was in motion. And one of the things that happened is that Commissioner Sally Heyman at the time called a sunshine meeting that allowed staff to participate and listen to the stakeholders. And out of that meeting actually came an amendment to the RFP. So here we are. We can do the exact same thing. I couldn't bring staff to this meeting to talk about this process because you all called this meeting. But I can call a sunshine meeting, invite you all, bring our staff to explain the RFP process, talk about all of our concerns. And if at the end of the day, we find that the RFP does not deal with these issues, we can amend this RFP in the same way that the courthouse RFP was amended. So I don't think we should put on our war paint. I don't think we're there yet. I don't think we need to throw the baby out with the bathwater. This is a process. And at the end of the day, we need to find a solution to bear cut because we all know that it's a problem. We all know that it is unsafe and we need to solve it. So I'm asking you guys to please give this a chance. I will have as many meetings as you want. I will do everything that I can to ensure that you are heard. You are not unheard by the county. You have a partner in me at the county, and I will lobby with the other 12 commissioners to make sure that they understand that this is in fact not just important to you, but essential to your survival as residents of Key Biscayne. I don't know how else to tell you guys that I'm with you on this, but I don't have the ability to throw out this RFP, and I don't think that we would gain anything from it. I think that we need to have another meeting, bring staff, ask them all the questions you want to ask them about everything from the cone of silence, to the procurement process. Speak to your attorneys. Your attorneys have been speaking to our attorneys, and they've been giving you information on what this all means and how it may or may not limit your access to the proposers. And I promise you that the proposers want to be selected. So they're listening to these meetings, they're taking it all in, but we can also have a meeting. And if we want changes to the RFP, we can do that together. This is not, I know that there's bad blood between the village and the county, but there's no reason for you all to doubt me or my sincerity. I think I've proven, my advocacy time and time again. I think that this did not come in the way that we all would have wanted it, but this may be an opportunity to get something done right. If it isn't, we can throw it out. We always have that option. When this comes back to the Board of County Commissioners, the county commissioners don't have to accept this. That's where we're at. That will happen anyway. So consider the different options. There are several. And again, I think it's very early in the process. I'm happy to call a meeting, happy to bring staff, happy to go through that whole process. the courthouse project worked. It was, if not as controversial, probably more. We're new at unsolicited proposals, but that's one of the ones that ended up working for the county. So happy to answer the rest of your questions.
I appreciate that. We're going to pause on our discussion. We did have one person who was trying to get in and was not able to. So I guess Nina Wallen, is she here or is she outside? She seems to be outside. Yeah, Commissioner, if you could just stay a few minutes. We just have this one last caller who wanted to come in, one person who wanted to speak. So. Okay, you can speak.
Since nobody has to wear the mask at the podium or apparently with you guys, I've been asked
You need to put your headset on, otherwise no one's going to hear you. State your name and address for the record. We can hear you.
Nina Wallen, 270 Hampton Lane, Key Biscayne, Florida. I want to make sure that everyone's put on record and notice not only this whole seating and situation right now with the mask, and you pick and choose when people can come in and when people can be given access to a very important meeting that is very important to the residents, is appalling to me at this point. And I've been out there. I've actually been trying to call in on the phone number for over 45 minutes and trying to gain access to it. And there was a busy signal. It almost sounded like a busy signal, like there was an overflow of calls coming in to directly address this issue. And I literally waited, kept trying and trying until I got back in the car and I drove over here just to come and tell you all to your face that whoever was calling at that time did not get through. And so the Rickenbacker is a very important thing to the residents, and I feel like not one of them have been heard. No one has any idea what you're trying to do. And at this point, allowing only 15 people to be in this chamber for such an important topic is really, really appalling, especially when you have a mask mandate that you apparently have created. And do you know that I came in here and no one was wearing a mask? So when everybody wants to be on camera with your mask because of show, that's fine. But I'm also going to come up here and be on camera and call you out on that. I don't appreciate it, and I certainly don't appreciate the show.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll get to some discussions and some questions to the commissioner. I just want to sort of frame where our discussion is going tonight. We really have two options. We've heard from our residents and we've heard from our commissioner. We have two options. We can move toward an open and public process that includes all stakeholders to identify the immediate needs and other possible improvements attendant to the Bearcut Bridge and the Rickenbacker Causeway, or we can support the continuation of the current unsolicited bid process. And those are the only two options I see available to us tonight as we're moving forward. Again, I've heard from many of residents. We've heard from them here tonight. I've seen your emails and your letters, and the vast majority that I have heard from overwhelmingly support moving to a public process, which would require that the Board of County Commissioners rescind the current unsolicited bid. And I am personally in agreement with this. I hope that the council will support this option as well. But I want to be clear that the county is not our enemy in this. All right, everyone and everyone from the mayor's office, Parks and Rec, Commissioner Regalato's team have made themselves available and have met with us to listen to our concerns and include our suggestions in their considerations. But at the end of the day, the unsolicited bid process just doesn't work for this issue. We need an open process that allows all of the stakeholders to take part and have a say, given the importance and the magnitude of the issue as it is to us as stakeholders, to the rest of the county as stakeholders, to everyone who's a stakeholder on this process. If it's agreed to by the council, I would like for all of us to ask Commissioner Regalado, who, by the way, and I want to reiterate what many people have said, you have been incredibly supportive of this community through this. And I understand that we're maybe in a disagreement about whether or not to proceed with the RFP as it is right now, but she's been incredibly helpful to this community. She's been out here. She's been diligent. She's been ahead of us on some issues, pushing things that we need for this community. And I appreciate everything she's done for us. She's looking out for the best, with the best of intentions for Key Biscayne. But as we move forward, I want to ask her to try and convince the Board of County Commissioners that the best path forward for a successful project involving Bear Cut Bridge and the Rickenbacker Causeway is a public process and not the current unsolicited bid. I hope that the county, that the council, yes, go ahead.
Yeah, not to interrupt you, but the issue is that the unsolicited proposal process was actually created by the chairman of the county commission. And the county commission believes that it is a public process. So that's why my point to you is that I'm happy to host a meeting. Okay. I'll bring staff. I will even do it at the Key. If you want me to come to you, I will bring staff. If I host a meeting, I can bring staff. You can ask them about the process. You can ask them about the interim agreement, about the details, why things were done a particular way. We can walk through all of it. Then you can all tell us what your concerns are, the same way that it was done with the unsolicited proposal for the courthouse. And if we get to a point where we believe that there are changes that need to be made to the RFP, we can still make that because we haven't gotten a response. So that my point is there is a way to participate in this differently. And I'm giving you the opportunity to do that, but you kind of have to agree with me. I don't really understand, like, if you take this position right now that you want to extract yourself from the RFP, like, I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to do with that. Because
I need to stop because there's 7 of us. Let's stop to have a dialogue. It's given. Commissioner, I echo what the mayor said. I echo what everybody said about your unbelievable commitment to us. I'm a little troubled that you're a little bit defensive on your tone today when we should be applauding you a lot. And I just hope that whatever has happened that I don't know about, you're not getting the wrong impression. No. Well, let me finish. About us as a council, which we have not been personally involved as much, but also our citizens. Our citizens are, notwithstanding what you might heard, are not spoiled. They're very responsible taxpayers. They produce wealth and they work outside the Key, et cetera, et cetera. So please, if maybe I'm being oversensitive, but I sense you a little bit defensive. We are blessed, literally blessed to have you there. And enough has been said about that. Having said that, I want you to know that as far as this councilman is concerned, I came here with an open mind and a lot of experience. An open mind and a lot of experience at 3 levels of government. So it's about listening. So we are not at this moment, at this hour, have any decision, notwithstanding of what any one of us feels. So we're gonna move in that direction as soon as we can get to business, which is gonna do now. I wanted to echo further, Mr. Mayor and my fellow council members, that I really we need to thank the mayor of Miami-Dade and all 13 county commissioners, Miami-Dade county commissioners, including a former county commissioner who is now the chief executive officer of the county, in which, having been an elected official like he has, he understands the difficult work of being a public official, in which the rule is no good deed shall go unpunished. So we're going into a project or a situation where we will have differences of opinion, but mutual respect for you, for the people you represent. As we hope that you respect us for the people we represent. And as Gene Stern said before, and others, we also here are the only body that is representing an unrepresented majority of people who come into our community, our island, who are low and middle low income people who visit our park. So it's important that as we start this process now, formally, we are the formal entity of Key Biscayne. The rest are citizens. We need to engage in a constructive, professional way and be able to be mature enough to disagree agreeably. And so in that sense, I very much want to echo, I know Councilwoman Petros said, and it does not come from a position of naivete. I follow some big pioneers that preceded me. I've been here 40 years. I was chairman of the Charter Commission 30 years ago, but before me, there were a lot of other pioneers that came and set the groundwork for that. And so we know how complicated our relationship is. We do not need to spend one more minute tonight or moving forward about blaming who is in the past. Our charge is to move forward constructively. And so I have to tell you two things. Somebody used, and I think it's Petros, this is complicated. Well, you know, the simplicity is the flip side of complexity. And things that come out of the public entity with convoluted words that are not plain English are really basically a way to camouflage simple concepts. And I have my ideas later on about how, what are our strategic values here. But clearly, this process has not started well. I mean, clearly, it is such an incredible. But I think we should all move forward constructively. And you, Commissioner Regalado, particularly, we will do and look to you. I know a good many of the members of the 13 members of the County Commission, not only personally, but over 20, 30 years. And all of them are good people. And we need to have that spirit if we move forward today. Otherwise, we're going to waste a lot of our energy, et cetera, et cetera. So as to the citizens of Key Biscayne, we are engaged, folks. And politics is the art of the possible. And we'll do the best we can to represent your interests. And that should be our mantra for tonight and moving forward.
Councilmember Segurola, and then Councilmember Kaplan.
Commissioner Regalado, I'd like to thank you very much for being here with us in spirit and through video. I greatly appreciate everything you've done for us since you got elected and before also. You are correct. This is a professional dilemma. This is not a personal dilemma. I hope that no one, either on this dais or in Key Biscayne or in the county, take anything that's said in this discussion or this debate personally. It's just not worth it. We're all trying to reach the best possible conclusion. I will explain what my position is. For me, the analysis is very simple. The county built and has been taking care of the Causeway for almost 80 years. The county represents, the commissioners and the mayor represent the county as a whole and all the visitors and tourists and everyone for everyone's best interest. The county no longer wants to deal with the Causeway. That's perfectly fine. So the question becomes, who is the next best natural caretaker of the Causeway? And I would say that is Key Biscayne, and I'll explain why. As the only people who live at the end of the Causeway, we have a vested interest in maintaining and improving the Causeway. It is in our best interest to make sure the bridges are repaired, are improved, are replaced. Why? Because not only do our homes, but also our livelihoods depend on it. Similarly, it is also in our interest to make sure that cyclists, motorists, tourists, people who visit Bill Baggs, people who visit Crandon Park, people who visit our businesses have a safe means of ingress and egress to our village. And furthermore, we are also the only ones that have a vested interest in making sure that all this is done for a reasonable price. Because if you raise the price too much, supply and demand, it'll be too expensive to come on to Key Biscayne, and then our property values will suffer, our businesses will suffer, everything will suffer. So that is why I would say to you, Key Biscayne is the only natural guardian of the Causeway after Miami-Dade County. I would say it's even Key Biscayne's manifest destiny to make sure the Causeway is safeguarded for everyone in the place of the county.
the problem with the current process that the county is going through is not just that it was an unsolicited bid done in secrecy and silence behind closed doors and presented without anyone knowing. That's just the first problem. The second problem is that, in my opinion, the RFP that's been put out there has basically been designed, I believe, to reach a foregone conclusion. And that foregone conclusion is that the original bidders are the ones that are going to get it. It's tailor-made for them. And that's unfair. So all those things lined up, I cannot support what the county is doing now. And not only do I believe that we should ask the county to formally rescind this process and start from scratch, I think, as has been stated, that we should also formally request that the county transfer the Causeway to Key Biscayne and give us time to come up with a proposal so that the Causeway can be managed, repaired, and improved for generations to come under the guardianship of Key Biscayne, the most vested parties in this entire transaction. And that's my position. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Kaplan, you wanted to speak?
I'll take a moment. And hello, Commissioner Regalado, and thank you. To, I think what Ignacio was saying, I would add a kind of a bias on my part, sort of an instinctual, dubious at least, if not negative reaction to the prospect of turning over responsibility and stewardship of an essential point of infrastructure to a for-profit entity. I'm not sure that in the best world of policymaking, that's the best possible construct for essential infrastructure. The big problem that I see here is that this is not just the current version of historical distrust. And I would disagree with some of the premises that this has always been a problematic relationship for us. It really has not been. And it overstates inaccurately the premise that we have a problem with the county. I'd speak a little bit differently if it was about the city, but we're not talking about the city. My initial takeaway is the nature of what we're talking about is, again, back to essential infrastructure. This isn't a public amenity. It's not a building. It's not a park. You know, so the unsolicited proposal that we're dealing with here is that existential linkage and practical necessity for us. That's just different from your average project. And the consequences of getting this wrong, either in design or in implementation, are dire. And so, of course, we worry about that. I don't think that we are misserved, on the other hand, by constructive engagement. And I think that our relationship and reliance upon our district commissioner includes and should include a degree of enlightened deference to her suggestions, because that's how the world works. If the world was different and we were dictators, we'd dictate our own result, but that's not how the world works. I don't see this really as a binary decision. I don't think the decision is either get butch and macho and take over and kill this process as if we had the unilateral power, authority, and right to do so, or acquiesce. We've not acquiesced. We've contributed thoughtfully, and we're being listened to. And obviously that needs to continue, but it also runs the risk of ultimately not working. Which brings me to the second big problem that I find in this is that this process is really unsuitable for this type of project. And one of the things that makes me think so is some of the remarks that we've heard from the crowd tonight. The process has skewed, whether by design or otherwise. Ignacio made a point about a kind of a preordained result. Whether or not that's true, the process has resulted in a constraint on design and planning that would not probably otherwise befall the people who care about the outcome of this project if this was done more in public and more with expert input at the beginning, not just along the way to determine whether the RFP actually works or not. So, and the second part, that kind of iterative part about operating under an interim agreement and then kind of figuring it all out, is how things work in the world. And I'm not fundamentally uncomfortable with that process at all. But if there are material elements of this that are locked in, we won't probably have the practical ability, whatever our degree of influence is, to alter it. And so the result of that is we'll be left, and the county will be left, and all the users of this causeway will be left with a less perfect solution than would have otherwise been obtainable. So with all that said, our district commissioner, it seems to me, has told us that this is not going to be derailed. I think perhaps a third path to travel along tonight, if we were going to make a decision, would be to write a letter expressing our numerous concerns and specifically articulating the reasons for them, not just enumerating them, but articulating the reasons for them, and suggesting either something along the lines that Ignacio just spoke to at the next stage of this, or perhaps a hybrid solution would be to be included as a participating member in the implementation team, the consortium, or whatever it's called, that is selected to have a role in that. And it doesn't need to be a profit-making role in a profit-making enterprise, but it needs to be a participatory decider, it seems to me, ideally, sitting at a board of directors type of a table, making these decisions. For example, the question that the woman asked about rate, I suppose the answer to that is, along with many other things, it's to be determined. But in a profit-making gambit, the practical opportunity to control the ultimate decision on that rate that so singularly and uniquely affects us without a proportional ability to participate in the decision on that critical point is not a great outcome for us. And we have good reason to worry in a for-profit context that that's not going to go well. So that's kind of like a third rail. I don't think, from what I've heard tonight, this is going to be abandoned just because we think the process is actually unsuitable for this type of a project. And I think we all probably agree with that premise. So we're left with working within this methodology that exists.
All right, Councilmember Moss and then Councilmember London.
Thank you. Councilmember Regalado, as everybody echoed, you're doing a wonderful job for us, and we really do thank you. But I'll put together some of my thoughts because I think we're in a difficult position right now. It is not an easy decision to make. And we have you there, Commissioner, to help guide us. And I think you have been a very good representative for us. And I think we should weigh that in our decision as well. But, you know, the RFP, you know, it has from fortifying our bridges to bettering our traffic flow to bicycle safety, park improvement. I mean, these are all things that everybody wants. But I think the biggest concern is the privatization of it. And I basically went through the numbers, and I don't really understand the bid. I think it may be backwards the way I'm looking at it. You know, I did the calculations of a $12 million revenue coming in, about $4 million for operating expense, leaving about $8 million in net revenue. And the borrowing power on that is only about $55 million. And we're talking about a project that's well close to $400-500 million to do a lot of these projects. So it seems to me that the most critical piece for this to be successful is getting some type of grant. I mean, I don't see how any private entity coming in or any other government would be able to do this project without some type of grant coming through. And I know in the RFP, it does state that you guys are working on a grant, but it seems that securing the grant first would be the proper way to do it, and then go out for this for a bid or do it in a public process bid, because I'm not sure how, or maybe I'm wrong on the process, but I don't know how anybody can actually put together a pro forma that will work. I'm not too worried about the tolls. The tolls for me, you have price elasticity. You can only charge so much before demand and will start dropping, and you really won't be making the revenues that you think you would be. Only 75% of the people who use the tolls are not Key Biscayne, and we only make up about 5% of the total revenues. So even tripling, quadrupling our fees still barely makes a dent into the borrowing capacity. So I have a lot of questions still, but I think that what Councilmember Kaplan brought up, I think is interesting, and I think we should maybe look at a third option, because we have somebody who represents us in the county. She's kind of leading our effort, and she's listening to us. She's here, and she's asking that she has a meeting with us to discuss a little bit more with us to understand the process. I'm not opposed to allowing that and finding out a little bit more before we make a very strong decision. And it would have to happen quickly, because obviously this is moving. But we have to keep the relationship well. I think she understands our concerns, but I think we should hear her out and find out a little bit more about the process and before maybe we make such a rational decision.
Thank you. Thank you. Yep. And listen, really quick, Mike, because I really do have to go soon. But just really quick. Listen, I understand where you guys are at. I hear you, Luis. I love you. I'm not upset. It's just I feel like I wasn't given an opportunity to explain to you that there was this option where I could call a public meeting and I can bring staff and you can drill them about your concerns in terms of the process. And I just think that you should do that before you make a decision. And I'm happy to organize that as soon as possible, and people can come and everyone can participate. I just want to give you all the information before you make your decision. I'm not advocating on either side. I just don't want anyone to make a decision based on, not having all the information. And really, you're going to be able to speak to the people who are going to be, going through that process. So it's worked. They've only done it once before, but I gave you an example. I spoke to our legal department about it. Everyone here at the county wants to include you. So I just asked you to allow me to have this public meeting and bring staff, sunshine it. Everyone that's interested can come. I'm happy to come down to the Key and do it. Just obviously it won't be on a day I have a county commission meeting because that's hard. But I just give us this one opportunity to vet this all. You can ask them all these questions. We can talk about the tolls. We can talk about the interim agreement. We can explain what the negotiation for that looks like. We could even talk about what's happened with other, unsolicited proposals in the past. And what happens if we throw out, what happens if this RFP, if the county doesn't want it, what happens then? Which I think is a good, question too. So just give me the opportunity to walk through all of this with you guys before you make a decision.
Fair. Councilmember London, I know you wanted to speak, and then Councilmember McCormick, and then we'll wrap up and have just a brief discussion on. Yeah. Okay, Ed, you got to unmute yourself.
Thank you, Commissioner Regalado, for your service. We really appreciate it, as already was expressed before me. I completely agree with Ignacio on the process. I'm not against the unsolicited process of proposal. I just think it was sort of backwards. Basically, you put the RFP together without the input of the stakeholders. Now the RFP has been put out, and now we talk about the stakeholders discussing with the particular winner of the proposals. And the RFP was written in such a way that I understand that the two other prospective bidders for this, Lynn and Bridge, have both decided not to bid on this process. So Z should probably become the only bidder, and we'll have the Z plan. Now, I'm not saying the Z plan is bad or good. All I'm saying is that we weren't consulted. We are the major stakeholder, as everybody said. As Frank brought out before, as far as a for-profit thing, and I think I sent you an email yesterday where we're going to create an unregulated monopoly. Well, all the other monopolies in Florida, your electric, your telephone, everything else, are monopolies, but they're regulated by the Public Service Commission. There's no regulation, there's no commission, there's no mechanism to decide what is in the best interest of the investors and the consumers, which is us. We are really in a monopoly position because with electric, you possibly can use a generator, solar power. With us, we only have the Causeway. So it is truly a monopoly. It is truly unregulated. And unless a commission of some sort is set up, it becomes really a political thing with the county commission to decide what are the fair rates. I know you're all very intelligent and very experienced, but probably most of you, not including you, aren't that experienced on rate setting, returns on investment, returns on equity, bands of investment, et cetera, et cetera. So I have a funny feeling that this is a done deal. And, you know, no matter what we do, it's a done deal, but hopefully I'm wrong. But anyway, whether it be us, because I think we would like to own or have the concession for the Causeway, since we have the most at stake. But if it's not us and it's somebody else, we'd like to make sure that some independent type commission is established to set rates and returns for the investors and for the community. And again, thank you very much for your service.
Councilmember McCormick.
Thank you. Just one of the good things about going last is so much has already been said, but I would like to echo the gratitude that's been given to Commissioner Regalado. It has been wonderful to see how often you're out here and working so hard for the key. My thoughts specific to this issue, I'm intrigued by the meeting idea, especially hearing the inclination of our commissioner that it doesn't seem that pushing to have this thrown out is going to go anywhere. I would like to see what happens with this next step of having a meeting. While it's interesting and I think important to have questions answered and to have more opportunity for public input, the thing that intrigues me the most and the reason that I would want to pursue that would be the idea of being able to amend the RFP for exactly what Ed said, that the way that this was structured, the RFP was written without first having all of the public input of the stakeholders. So perhaps before it is truly done and dusted, there's an opportunity to include that type of input. I also would like to comment a little bit on the process and reassure residents that it's been amazing to see how far we have gotten. I sat up here through the part of the boat show litigation, and I know what it was like trying to work with the city of Miami and seeing the progress that our manager and mayor have made, and the way that they have been able to get us involved in the process to the extent they have has really been very, very different, at least for me, and encouraging. So the idea of trying to pursue this to possibly amend the RFP to better include what we think we need is definitely something that I would be interested in. The only other thing that I heard tonight that I wanted to comment on, I know former council member Petros talked about us needing to have a list of exactly what our priorities are. And that is something that we have done. And to let residents know, we have had a lot included. And perhaps this opportunity of having this meeting and possibly amending the RFP could help us to try to include everything that we're interested in, which ultimately is the most important thing. More important than posturing or trying to take control of things that aren't ours. We need to make sure that what we need is addressed and included in this RFP. And then to also try to leave the door open to stay a part of the process in the next phases. Thanks.
Thank you. All right. So I would like us, I mean, here's my concern. I would, you know, I appreciate the commissioner offering us a meeting. I think that's the right way to go with her staff so that we can have a fuller discussion about potentially editing this RFP. My concern, of course, is that the deadline is November 4th for bids to be submitted. The only meeting, as I understand it, the BCC there's one meeting in October, and that's at the beginning of October. Do you know, Chad, Mr. Attorney? Chad, October 5th or? So October 5th. So my question to the commissioner and the commissioner staff would be, how could we go about having a meeting where what we're seeking could be considered and then put on an agenda, because you need the county commission to amend this RFP by October 5th, I would assume, in order to make this, to affect this and have any bearing on the outcome.
I think the mayor could actually amend it.
Yes, the mayor
okay.
did. So in the past, what's happened, again, this only happened one time with the courthouse. And by the way, it's not a meeting with my staff. What I couldn't bring was procurement staff and park staff. I mean, I can bring my staff anywhere, but I mean, again, I'm not the mayor. I can't ask staff to go. So, this would allow staff to speak on the issue because it is a county sponsored sunshine meeting. So once the county calls it, that allows staff to be able to answer your questions and anyone's questions as to the process, from the RFP process to the unsolicited proposal process. It also allows us to hear from everyone that's interested on this and consider amendments to the RFP. So that's what happened in the past. It could happen in this situation too, but we would have to have that meeting. I would have to call it. The only issue with timing is I need enough time. I need 48 hours, from the date, right? We need to pick a date, and then I need to sunshine it properly so that then we can bring staff and everyone can be there.
I mean,
I'd like to move it. I'd like to move formally so that she can go on.
Yeah, could you
make that motion and we can continue the process?
Yeah, let's just, do we have consensus of council?
Yeah, let's make it a motion.
Well, okay, make a motion. I'll second the motion. Okay, Allison second. Councilmember McCormick seconded it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
So we will call a meeting.
Well, no. We will not.
She will call a meeting.
Thank you. Commissioner, if you could have your staff work with our manager staff to set something up, that would be great. And we could let's move this to the next level. And again, I understand this is difficult, but we need to make some amendments to this because as a couple of people have said, the way this RFP is set up, it appears to be a foregone conclusion that precludes, and it's like we put the cart before the horse, because for us, the cart is the bridge. We need a bridge. We need a bridge so that we can get on and off our island, and everything else we can look at and figure out how we need to set that up to move a project forward into the future. But that bridge has to be addressed with haste. So
Kaplan's words. Wise words, many of them, but he told, I think, enlightened deference.
That's right.
This motion is enlightened deference to someone who we trust, and this is what she's telling us plainly that we should do. So I like this idea, and that's on. And
so, Commissioner, I know you've had a long day. So whenever your folks can get with our manager, Mr. Manager, coordinate with us. I know you've got a busy schedule with the budget coming up and some other things, but let's move this as quickly as possible. We'll do also, could we also do this in the community center so we can get more people in the room? Because I think somebody did make the point that we only had so many people. The more people we can have at these meetings in person, it's much more effective for them to be able to feel. And for anybody who suffered, technical difficulties, I apologize. I don't know what happened. I do know a couple people were trying to call in. So I will apologize for that. So let's keep moving.
Happy to have it at the community center. Thank you all so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Do you want to, since some people have joined since, would you like to maybe offer an opportunity?
Let's have them come to the next meeting. I think otherwise it'll be a little confusing, but I'll move to adjourn.
Mr. Mayor, just to a couple of things. First of all, I hate to bring it up to you, Mr. Manager, because we're volunteers. I'm ready to work this month of September, whatever it takes to get this done. But I am troubled, and I brought this up now for a year and a half since we've been offline, that a lot of people have a hard, difficult time getting through, and the same people do get through. That's all I'm going to say. And, there's been technical excuses. We don't have the right equipment. people are contributing with. That lady was very upset, and I sympathize with her. I don't know how many people didn't go through, but if you remember this comment before, we better fix this because it's bringing bad vibes to an already divided community. I hope you understand. Something is happening that regular people are not getting through, experienced people are getting through. And we know, and you know who they are because they spoke all today. Enough said. I want to just give you,
hold on.
Let me just give you one feedback on something before you adjourn, may I?
Yeah, Councilmember McCormick wanted to say something. Councilmember Segarola also wanted to say something. Go ahead.
I think it is a good point that we see people struggling, and I sympathize with the woman who was so upset, and you could see she was physically upset, and no one should feel that way and feel that they don't have access to their government. I wonder if perhaps it may be helpful to have on the village website some sort of tutorial or instructions, because clearly the people who, I don't think anyone is picking and choosing who is getting through.
Oh, absolutely.
But it is clear that people who have experience and who know how to do it figure it out, and it shouldn't be that you have to attend to every meeting to be able to speak at one. So if there's anything that we could do with our new website, or even maybe when we make our announcements on social media ahead of time, if there's some way to offer a little instructions, that may help to alleviate the problem.
Councilmember Segarola, and then Councilmember Laredo one more time.
I make an additional motion that we do two things. Number one, ask the county to quash this process formally. And number two, ask the county to turn over Rickenbacker Causeway to Key Biscayne.
Is there a second for that motion at this time?
Not me.
Motion dies for lack of a second. Councilmember Laredo?
I just wonder if we're here already, if we can take now, since that probably is the only action motion, but if we can have a little bit, maybe set a time of no more than 20 minutes of exchange of ideas as we prepare. Since we are under sunshine, I won't be able to share some ideas with you based on my experience that you may find relevant, and I from you as we head to this other meeting. If you don't mind, I want to do that.
So your thoughts on what we should be doing?
No, just sharing experiences, because I have some things that refer. We cannot call another meeting. We're here already. Let's just take another 15, 20 minutes over there.
Then we have an objection. Withdraw your motion to adjourn?
No objection.
Okay.
I took good notes on your reflection, which I share on privatization. And I told you all before that I have two experiences that are relevant. One, I was a regulator and set very large rate cases for 2 years, Ed, so I know what it is like. And that process is pricing to cost and guarantee a return of investment. Very complicated, above our pay grade. Second of all, every privatization that I have witnessed in my international business career have been not only a failure from the public in cost point of view, but they have been because of lack of the infrastructure. You called it correctly again, as you essential infrastructure, which is already there. Is already the vested investment is there. Somebody is going to reap the benefit of that investment for their profit motives, which I am a capitalist. But it's a very big difference in all the privatizations that I know, and there are many with roads, particularly toll roads. They have been done when those governments had not the revenue to build new highways. And so you, as an elected official, were shielded from any protest because you don't have to take that highway, but you also didn't pay for it. And so I am 100% with you in my experience, not a philosophical one. This is a mistake. It's a little bit above our capacity. We're underestimating. Give me the bridges. I just want you all to that it's otherwise you get involved into a public process, which is basically guaranteeing a return of investment on a project which is essential when already the infrastructure is better into it. So as you think through, I urge you to consider that. And I think it's very, very constructive that we go with the right attitude to that meeting and an open mind.
I think that's right. I think, let's go into that open-minded and let's try and work through. And if people have questions, they can submit to the clerk that we can try and get ahead of time for Commissioner Regalado and county staff so that they can have answers for us. I will certainly be sending some of my concerns. I do like the idea of having some sort of authority on the Causeway. We've been talking about it. We talked about it back when Frank and I were on the council back in right around the time of the bridge condemnation, we might call it. So I think that's an idea that has validity. That's not for now because unfortunately, we're being pushed into a time-constrained environment. But I think that's something certainly worth looking at to see what.
But Mayor, would you agree, just so that he has the flexibility, that if for some reason technically only the county commissioner and she has to, go to the mayor and it's a strong mayor and Mr. Morales, that they want to do it downtown, to go ahead and proceed anyway? Just so
I would prefer not to.
No, I know I do too.
But I would prefer. I mean, I don't want to kill it. Okay. Let's leave it the way she said. Okay. She promised to bring it to the Key Biscayne. It's for Key Biscayne residents. This is we're the only municipality that has no control over their ingress and egress. And I
was trying to avoid somebody sabotaging the meeting.
Look,
I know.
They've been very respectful and they have sought to answer our questions and they want us to try and they want to bring us in. So let's give them the opportunity. All right. I'm going to move to secondarily adjourn. Okay.
Second.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Everybody have a great night.
Thank you.